found in a population of primitive unicellular organisms. Let me interpret that for you. That means a single, simple cell. A simple, single cell. Has anybody ever seen one? No. This is a single cell. Did you know the single cell is more complex than the most complex machine man has ever built, the space shuttle? Just the single cell. It's like a city of activity going on down there. Here it says, humans probably evolved from bacteria, Grandpa, that lived more than 4 billion years ago. Folks, this right here, you see that little photograph up there in the corner, that there is a photograph taken through a microscope of just one hair of a bacterium. Just a hair from a bacterium is like a complex motor system, very complex. And some folks think that happened when lightning struck the swamp one day. And you had these complex chemicals, all 50 trillion of them, lined up in alphabetical order, and lightning struck the swamp, and there was the first bacterium. And they used terms like, the first life form emerged. Well, that means abracadabra, poof, there it was. It just emerged, or appeared, they use that term too. And when they say millions of years ago, if anybody starts out a story that starts out millions of years ago, they made it up. Okay, whatever they're going to tell you from that point on, they made it up. Evidence number 2, design demands a designer. How many here have been to Mount Rushmore? Okay. When you were there, did you look up and exclaim, oh look, the world's largest rock group? Probably not. But if there was a professional geologist there, and you said, man, look what wind and rain and erosion did over millions of years, you know, he would probably look at you like you were nuts. Are you trying to say that wind and rain and erosion didn't do that? Well, no, man, somebody designed it. Really? What about the guy that designed it? Oh, he was just here by accident. Huh? Well, it doesn't make any sense to me. God's intelligent design and plan for the earth. Let's take a look at that. In Isaiah 45:12, it says, I have made the earth and created man upon it. I, even my hands, have stretched out the heavens, and all their hosts have I commanded. God spoke, and it was done. Isaiah 45:18 says, God himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it, he created it, not in vain, or for no purpose. He formed it to be inhabited. And it doesn't say that about any other planets, that God formed them to be inhabited, just planet Earth. And he put man here for a special purpose. We're going to go through the 6 days of creation. I don't know if I've asked you, if I ask you how many could raise their hand today and stand up and tell us what God did and what he made in each of the 6 days of creation. You know, that's not something we normally commit to memory, but it's something we should. It becomes very important, especially in dealing with an evolutionist or a theistic evolutionist, and you need to understand what God did and what he made in each of the 6 days. We're going to go through that this morning, maybe help you out a little bit in that area. But in day number 1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. You notice heaven is in the singular. This is reference to space. It says the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. If you keep in mind, as you're going through the 6 days of creation, as Isaiah 45:18 said, that God formed the earth to be inhabited. As you go through these 6 days, God is forming the earth to be inhabited by man. Do you think God could do all of this in just 6 days, make the whole universe? Well, actually, God could have spoken it into existence at the beginning of day 1, but he didn't do that. He took 6 little 24-hour days, and then he rested a day and gave us a pattern for a week. And God said, let there be light. And God divided the light from the darkness. And the evening and the morning were the first day. When does the Jewish day begin? When the sun goes down, when it's dark out. Then it ends in the daylight. Did you know that goes back to the pattern for the first day? See, God spoke a physical universe into existence with the absence of light. Then he spoke light into existence. So you had darkness, then you had light. In the evening, darkness, and the light were the first day. Now on day 2, God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. What is this firmament that was in the middle of the waters? Some said, well, it's just some dirt. See, the dirt comes up and divide waters over here from over there. Well, that's interesting because after that it talks about the firmament as being heaven, and it says a heaven where the birds fly. I don't think birds fly in the dirt, but God took the waters and he divided them. He put some waters down here on earth. He divided them, put a firmament in there, and put some waters up above. And he created our atmosphere on day number 2. Now that's going to do a number of things. It's going to block out X-ray and UV radiation that affects the aging process. Things were very different on the first day of creation. In fact, it was very different before Noah's flood. Do you think that man really lived to be 900 and some years old? Yeah, I think it was a different world back then. And they weren't using some way of measuring time that's 7 times what we do today, because that would mean people having babies at the age of 5. No, they were just could live longer. But it's going to trap heat in, let visible light in, and increase the oxygen pressure. By the way, did you know at the very first day of creation, you had what looked like a ball of water inside a ball of water? You see, you had the canopy of water above the atmosphere. Then you had earth, but the Bible says the dry land does not appear until day 3. So you couldn't see it yet. So it was like a ball of water with some dirt inside. But it's going to increase the oxygen pressure. Did you know we have just the right amount of oxygen in our atmosphere? We have about 18 to 21% today. You know, if you had 5% more, fire would probably burn uncontrollably. If you had 5% less, you probably wouldn't be able to strike a match. See, we have the right balance for breathing and controlling fire. You know, we have an awesome God. You know, water is very important. Why are they trying to find signs of water on the other planets? Because you got to have water for life to exist. So you got to have water. And 70% of the Earth's surface today is water. I believe before Noah's flood, maybe 85 to 90% of the Earth's surface was landmass. Then you had smaller bodies of water, these seas, a small body of water completely surrounded by land, not the deep, wide oceans we have today. 60% of our body is made up of water. Water will dissolve almost anything. My wife likes to get me up to go walking in the morning about 6:15 during the summer months. And I've tried telling her, dear, I thought that's why I retired, so I wouldn't have to get up early. She said, you used to get up at 4:30. You are sleeping in. Okay. And I like going walking with her in the morning, but some days I just don't feel like getting out of bed, and going out there walking for 2 miles. So I will look off on the horizon some days and say, man, I don't know, sweetheart. Looks like it might rain. Looks like it might be a storm coming in. You never know how soon these things can spring up. And she turns to me, and what does she always say? You're not going to melt. And my answer is, you don't know that. The science book says water will dissolve almost anything if you give it time. Just because it hasn't happened yet. That never keeps me from going walking, but I try it anyway. Minerals and chemicals must be dissolved before they can be taken in by the plants. On day number 3, God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas, and God saw that it was good. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind. So on day number 3, God separated the waters from the dry land, and he created plant life. Let me show you why that's important. A number of years ago, I was doing a radio call-in program, and this guy called in there and says, well, I'm a creationist. Why do some of you creationists have to insist on 6 little 24-hour days of creation? Why don't you know the Bible says, and I knew what he was going to say before I said it, well, a day with the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. I said, yeah, it says when it is past, if you look at the Old Testament reference. So when it's past, whether it's 1 day or 1,000 years, it doesn't matter to God. Time doesn't mean anything to him. But let's say there's some symbolism there. Maybe you're going to have a 6,000 years of Earth history and another 1,000 years, and maybe there's some symbolism there. But do you believe, sir, that God created the plants on day number 3? And he said, okay. And I don't think he had a clue what it meant on day number 3. But I said, sir, let's give you your 1,000 years for each day. You know that still only gives you 6,000 years for the creation. That's still not enough time for evolution to happen. But if he made the plants on day 3, then 1,000 years later, he made a sun so the plants could have heat energy. And then 2,000 years after that, he made insects so they could pollinate. So, sir, would you explain to me how you can have plants for 1,000 years with no heat energy and 3,000 years with no insects?